Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how we get down here. Whatever the challenge is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever you feel like is getting in the way of your goals, we are here to indirectly tell you are not going through it alone. Today, we have a brand, it's not necessarily a new term, it's just a new term that's used in the context in which we're going to use it. It's called differentiation, And for me personally, with a name like Aswan Crookshank, I was really drawn to his work and what he was all about. But I have Mr. Barry LaBov, the author of The Power of Differentiation. How are you today, sir?
I am great, Aswan, and I'll tell you that's it's a great intro. And differentiation is for companies as well as individuals, and so I'm looking forward to this today. So I'm
But
glad to be here with you.
yeah, and that, we can start right there, man, because when
Yeah.
I was listening to you earlier, I realized you made a comment that really stuck out in terms of the way people casually say, "Oh, I just do this work," or "I
Right.
just run a company." And we in our own language don't realize that just saying that makes it so it leads to a very stagnant, monotonous workplace and people aren't really growing. So I know you, like you said, I want to be very respectful of your time, but I want to give you the opportunity a little bit to, first of all, how did you come up with this concept? And then what made it so you really tweaked it and turned it into something that, as someone that maybe just listening to you now is like, man, he's really tapping into something that is hitting folks right here, right, right where they want to think.
No, I think that's a great question. So a couple things here. You're absolutely right. When we describe ourselves or what we do, we have to listen to the words we use. There are 200,000 words in the English language. And so often we use the same half dozen to a dozen. We say things like just, well, we're just another such and, well, I'm just one of the engineers that I'm just, we also say things like, what do when we're asked, well, what's your company do or provide? Oh, well, great value and solutions and products and great price. And okay, all that is garbage in the minds of people. So we have to look at what makes us unique and we have to pay attention to it. So that's what led me to focusing on differentiation. When COVID struck, I was writing the book, and the book was originally going to be focused primarily on how to brand a company and its products to increase market share. But COVID made the book far more powerful. And that's because in 2021, at the peak of COVID, 50 million Americans quit their jobs.
Yep.
50 million. And many of them said, look, I just don't care for what I'm doing. I don't know if I feel like doing this anymore, et cetera, et cetera. And it occurred to me, yes, there are millions of brands that compete with each other. But when we start to think of the human element, which is the people behind these brands, it gets to be almost an epidemic problem. And that is this: if you don't believe in what you're doing and you don't think your company's doing anything that's significant or special, you're not going to feel significant or special. You'll have no meaning and you're going to leave. So as I rewrote the book, I made sure that the subtitle was Win, WIN, Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share, because that's the order you have to go in. You got to win the hearts and minds of your people, of your customers. They got to believe, they got to feel like, gosh, what you're doing is important and it actually makes a difference. And then you know what? You'll increase market share. It's almost impossible not to. So that's what it is. And when I'll just share this, Aswan, because I think it's interesting. Um, do not confuse differentiation with superiority. So you could look at any field out there. You could look at sports. You
Yes.
could look at anything. You could have two different brands, two different people, products, whatever. They both can be great,
Hmm.
but one does it in a different way, a
Yep.
different style. And that's what makes it unique. And that's why its customers are drawn to it. And that's what we have to do. We don't try to create the brand, we discover it, and then we honor and celebrate it.
I'm glad you brought up sports, and I'm glad you brought up winning the hearts and minds of people because just last week I found myself in a kind of a debate or in a conflict with a colleague of mine. We're football guys. He was actually a college teammate of mine, and now we teach at the same school. And there's this big brand that Under Armour has called Under the Lights, and they do a flag football league and all this stuff. And I was approached by one of the subcontractors, no, the contractor, and he offered me an opportunity to be a sub facilitator or something to be involved with the league. So I brought it to him, lives out in West Palm Beach, and he said, "Look, I ain't doing anything with Under the Lights." Now, me, I hear a
Right.
brand like Under Armour. I'm from Maryland, grew up in the DMV. I saw the brand do like work the grassroots level.
Hmm.
He's from Florida. He didn't see that. He just sees a big powerhouse company that's going to come in for a money grab. And we ended up going back and forth about, okay, well, if we can get the kids to show up, maybe we can, work with parents, work with kids, work with whatever it is. So when you see conflict like that and there's this big power brand that comes in and say, look, I got the money to get the resources versus the individual. Now neither one of us are wrong versus the individual that really wants to win the hearts and minds of the people. How do you
Right.
coach people through that dilemma? How do you make it so there's some sort of compromise where something gets done? Because what I've seen is people just go back and forth. And nowadays, with this cancel culture we live in, they just say, look, I ain't gonna do it. And then nothing actually gets done, which is what we don't want happening?
Well, I agree with you. I think the cancel culture is terrible. And in my book, I talk about perfection and I call it the perfect trap. We want something perfect. Now, cancel culture, we not only want something perfect, we want something perfect that might have happened 200 years ago when the world was completely different, but we want it changed back then. Okay, and we're not going to get that. So
Exactly.
what we have to realize is that perfection is not attainable. It's not. It's not worth it. Perfection stops progress. And if you look at some of the great minds like Steve Jobs,
Yes.
he called it shipping the product. Ship it. He would say, ship the product. And his engineers would say, no, it's not perfect yet. It still has a flaw. He goes, ship the product. And
Oh,
that's why today, Aswan, the iPhones and the laptops we have, and even the cars we buy will get updates, right? We'll have to then update our phone or sometimes some of our electric cars as an example. That's
dude,
because
I
they're,
didn't even know that. I thought I knew. Oh my, see, this is why I do the show. Like you just
yeah,
taught me stuff. I had no idea that he waited or he didn't wait till something was perfect and he would tell his
right.
engineers. I didn't know that. That's what's
Oh,
up.
yeah. He wanted it out
Right.
because the point is, once you get that thing out there and
Hmm.
it works to some extent, you're going to learn, okay, yeah, a couple of things you knew didn't work. Okay, you're going to fix them, but you're going to learn other things. You may learn something that it does is even better than you thought. You're going to learn things, and you have to be constantly in that battle. And one other thing, I'm a former musician.
Hmm.
Some of the greatest songs that we love started out as mistakes. Somebody sat at the keyboard or at the guitar and
Hmm.
their fingers went to the wrong place, a place that wasn't normal. And they went, whoa, what is that? And
Hmm.
instead of condemning it and say, that's it, I'm not going to touch this keyboard, they went, wait a minute, I love that. Let's try that again. Oh, look at that. Let's do it. And they would build ideas around it because they weren't worried about perfection.
Hmm.
What would have been viewed as a mistake was viewed as something that had potential. So we have to look at in differentiation or in the world itself, progress is what we need. Perfection
Hmm.
gives people a license to do nothing, to procrastinate.
Exactly. Exactly. And I see that a lot. And what I've learned is, especially as we're heading into this new year, is it's like Lou Holtz say, motivation is simple, eliminate the people that are not motivated. Because everything we're discussing, and I'm more so talking directly to you listeners right now, is when you see people who you may have a passion about something, like I was just referring to the Flag League, you may want to do something. What we landed on, Barry, was the fact that, hey, we're the only two that's really going to be passionate about this. So, before we even go and make an investment, we got to go find, parents and
Yes.
people that are actually going to show up and want to do work on a Saturday. And that brings me to the next point that I wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to speak about is the resistance. The folks out there who hear the word different and they run from it. And I know the folks out there that may be listening that you are sort of turned off by or would hear your work and it makes it difficult for you to actually get them to do things because they're resisting anything that's changing. Can you kind of speak on maybe some of the experiences that you may have with people? Because I want people listening to know, look, this isn't for everybody. All right. This
Mhm.
is for the people that actually do want to grow.
Well, if you think about it in business today, and it can be also in our culture as human beings, there is a pressure to commoditize for you to act the way I act, and we're not allowed to use certain words and we have to do certain things. It's the same thing with brands. You know what? Let's dumb down the brand that we have. Let's lower the price. Let's get rid of the coolest stuff that make it kind of quirky, kind of strange, but really cool. Get rid of it all. That's the pressure. Well, the problem with that is it's easy to do that, but then you deal with the outcome, which is losing the passion of people, losing the inspiration that people have for the product. So, what we have to realize is each of us and each of the products that we represent has some level of distinctiveness or uniqueness. We have to discover that and not change it. We have to honor it. We have to make sure people see that. With I mentioned Apple, if you look at one of his products, which was an iPod,
Yep.
if you ask people, did you ever own an MP3 player? Most people go, no. If you ask them, did you ever own an iPod? They go, well, yeah. Okay, well, he named an MP3 player instead of just saying, yeah, well, we have just another MP3 player. No, no, we have an iPod. We have an iPad. It's not just a tablet, it's an iPad.
Yeah.
We have an iMac. It's not just a laptop. Okay, so you've got to realize that, yes, people may be afraid of something a little different, but we have to look at it that if I'm no different than anybody else, why should you look at my product? Why should you listen to me? I have to stand for something that's unique, that is genuinely me. And that's what we look for in brands, in products, and ultimately in leaders.
All right. So on that point, and I do want to hear your input on this as well. When you're talking about Steve Jobs, when you're talking about Apple, it's really only, if I'm not, yes, four products. It's the, if you want to count the headphones, you can count that, but then it's the phone, it's the iPad, and it's the computer. And he has just simply focused on those three products. So when you run into potential clients and the people that you may be working with, and they think that the answer is, oh, I got to just add more products, so I got to add more service, I got to do all this busy work that's not going to lead to a result. How do you
Mhm.
instruct them to, how do you kind of corral them and make them realize, hey, maybe it's just a way you're presenting it? Because I've heard that
Mhm.
story a ton of times as well when it comes to Steve Jobs, is the MP3 player. You can look this up, folks. The MP3 player actually existed before the
Oh,
iPod.
yeah.
He
Yeah.
simply said, no, we're going to tell folks that they need an iPad. We're not going to try to act like it doesn't exist. We're just going to tell them that they need the iPad and not the MP3 player.
Right. Well, and remember, Apple also produces the iWatch, which is
The watch, yeah.
incredibly
Another one.
okay. So, but here's the deal: what they have done, using Apple as a great example, they identified that their uniqueness is that they are at the intersection of creativity
Mhm.
and technology. So, creativity and technology. That makes them different than a PC, which may be the intersection of word processing and technology, right? So a PC is going to be more like an Excel or a Word document producer, those kinds of things. So what we're talking about here is when you identify what's at the heart of what you do, sometimes it gives you the opportunity to create other things. So one thing also, again, if you look at any brand, if they have a number of different products, the successful brand has those products and all of them represent what that brand is about. So it could be technology and creativity. It could be a high level of safety. It could be a high level of refinement and engineering brilliance, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But all their products must reflect that because that's their brand.
Mhm. So allow me, because I know I do want to be very respectful of your time, kind of describe the person that is an ideal client for you. Because as I was, doing my research and looking at some of the work you do, I know personally that you're not for everybody. And I do want to give
Mhm.
you the
Right.
opportunity to describe that person who may be listening, especially, I didn't even realize that you had a music background, but that creativity element is so, I teach at a school that's, Center for, we bring in teaching artists to help teach kids art integrated education and stuff like that. And you would be somebody that we bring in every once in a while just to teach the kids how to stay creative. Speak to
Mhm.
us a little bit about your ideal client and who exactly you're looking to serve and who you want to help.
We have not so much a demographic that we look for. So demographic would be how large is this
Mhm.
client? Where are they located? We have a psychographic, which is a mindset. And the mindset of our ideal client is one that is hungry to grow.
Right.
They're humble. They want to hear ideas, and they're really up for, sometimes a less than positive response on some things they're doing. They want to hear the truth.
Yes.
And they are willing to roll their sleeves up and work with us.
Mhm.
So we work great with that client. We do not work well with a client that says, look, I already have the answers. I need arms and legs to go, do the things I want. And I'm going to go, well, we're not that special in that way.
Mhm.
So I look for companies that have a challenge. They're going, we have so much that we offer, but why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard to get sales? How come our
Mhm. Oh, oh. Mm.
my gosh, right in front of me has been this product that is so great. So I love that. And then what happens, Aswan, is that I guess I'll put it this way, our ideal client is right there with us all the way as a partner. And it doesn't turn into, hey, dance for me, do this, do that. They call me up. It could be on the weekends, or they text my people on the weekends or after hours, and we text them back on things. We are focused to see them do well. So we're looking for that kind of client. They're hungry, they're humble, they're ready to roll their sleeves up, and they want to get some progress.
Yes. So I looked through your LinkedIn and I think you definitely fit the description of a serial entrepreneur. You have definitely done quite a few things. Could you just tell people a little bit about what's next, what's coming down the pipeline, and how do you see this thing growing?
Well, it's interesting you said that. I never wanted to be in business as a kid, never.
It never happens like that. I swear. Folks just
Yeah.
hit the bug and then they get rolling, man.
Right. And I never wanted to have anything to do with selling. I didn't want to have anything to do with that. I just wanted to do creative things like play music.
Right.
And so what's happened over the years is I've found that I love doing what I'm doing at my company because it's so creative. I
Hmm.
took what I learned running rock bands, and I run my company like it's a rock band. I look for talent. It's like running a sports team. You look for talent. Nobody's perfect on the team. So you put people in the right position so they can perform well.
Hmm.
And over the years, I have invested in a number of different companies. One was a golf course, a tremendous golf club in Indiana. And for 7 years, I ran that while I was still running my company, it was a great experience. I've
Hmm.
invested in technology companies. I'm involved with a number of philanthropic pursuits. And my company has been very successful for almost 50 years, 40 some years. The
Hmm.
next thing for me is to continue working with people, identifying the magic in them and in their brands, and being able to influence or inspire 1 million people in the world based on this. I want 1 million people or more worldwide to stop for a moment and think, what we're doing is actually good. And you
Yes.
know what? We need to honor it. We need to celebrate it. And we need to make sure we don't stop doing the few things we do that are magical. That's what I'm going to do. So going forward, I've got great people at my company that are running the enterprise. I'll be able to work and help other people, and hopefully the company wants me around in the future too.
Yes, and that's a really, really important point that I want to make sure doesn't get brushed over. If you're running a business and without you, it doesn't run, then you're moving in the wrong direction. You got to be able to run your business and know that if you were to leave today or go on and do something else, it runs the same way. And your people, that's your job to train up those people the right way. So that's a very important point that you made as well. Can you just tell people how to get in touch with you? Where is the best place to reach out if they're interested in hearing more?
Well, Aswand, I have a special offer for people that listen or watch me on podcasts. So if they go to my website, barrylabov.com, and you go to the books section, we'll send either a free PDF of the book, we'll email it to you, or if you want the hardcover, we will send it to you for shipping and handling. You give us your address, we'll send it to you. So it's barrylabov.com. My company's website is LaBov, LABOV.com. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am very happy to help people, to give people a chance. You know, if I can open a door for somebody and it inspires them, it will inspire other people as well. So have at it. I'm happy to connect with people day and night.
Hey man, you listeners, you regular listeners, you guys are spoiled, man. You guys are getting all sorts of free gifts on this show. But hey, that's why you tune in. That's why you tune in every day. So final thing I do, Barry, to close out all the shows is I want you to just use your imagination a little bit. We're back to COVID time. You're writing this book. You're thinking about the world is all over the place. Pretend that that version of you has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
My words of encouragement would be keep focusing, realize that the challenges that are ahead will at some point vaporize, they will leave, and that the world will be a better place.
Plain and simple. And if you're new around here, the reason I go to that question to close is because if you are going through whatever it is you're going through, whatever challenge or whatever obstacle you may be going through, we're here again, like I said at the beginning, to let you know you're not going through it alone and somebody else is here to, help walk you through this, even if it's just for the moment. So, all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.